Hello everyone. Again, one more time, thank you to the organizers for this great event. And today we are going to be talking about some tools that you might be using during your Flutter development. You can decide to use these according to your needs and how you can actually make your Flutter development better. So before we continue, let me introduce myself. I'm Salih and I am a Flutter and Dart GD. I'm based in Berlin. I've been living in Berlin since 3.5 years. I've been an organizer at Flutter Berlin meetup with two great person, and we are doing some meetups. We will be doing another online meetup in May. Also, I've been one of the founders of Flutter Turkey community. What we are doing is we are getting the consent of the writers of some blog posts and translate them into Turkish, so people can have access to non-English material as well. And we also have a meetup there. If you're a native Turkish speaker, you can come to that because most of our talks are in Turkish, and we have that tomorrow. So let's continue. Today we are going to be talking about tooling in Flutter. And one thing that we need to keep in mind is good tools always enhances the quality of our working environment. Plus, it also enhances the quality of our product, because if we can use great environment, great tooling, we can actually test out what we have and have some conclusions and have some testing results to make it even better. So I'm going to just take you through about some tools that we have to have a better Flutter experience. First of all, I'm going to talk about IDs. I know it's quite straightforward, but believe me, this is the most common question that I'm hearing from the developers. Like, which IDs can we use? Which one is the best? How can we pick one? So, as you all almost know, an ID is a platform that you're using to develop some product, some application, and you can just use it to develop whatever you have in your making, in your plan. So we have a lot of different approaches like Visual Studio, IntelliJ, Android Studio, etc. And luckily, these three are the things that are supported by Flutter itself. So if you're coming from Android environment and if you already have an Android Studio working, you can just install the Flutter packages and you will be good to go. You can just use it. But if you don't want to slow down your computer with the unnecessary Android stuff, you can just get rid of it. And you can just use other two IDs, like you can use either IntelliJ or Visual Studio Code. IntelliJ IDE is basically working like Android Studio. Android Studio is built upon this technology, and you can just use it. Also, you can use Visual Studio Code, and you can have a more lightweight IDE. So at the end of the day, you will be able to just go through some choices that you have that Flutter is giving you. And according to your experience, like if you're coming from web background, you might be using Visual Studio Code, you can keep using that. But if you are using an IntelliJ IDEA, if you're coming from Android background, you can just use IntelliJ IDEA. So let's continue. One thing that I want to mention here is like how to reload and how to restart. One thing that Flutter gives you. Like I wanted to talk first IDs, then this. Then I will go back to the dev tools. Why I wanted to talk about this? Because these are really important topics that you need to keep in mind to make your Flutter development environment better. You need to take advantage of everything that it gives you. But if you're developing Flutter for a while, you probably know Simon, and Simon yesterday wanted me to tell you that do not use master if you want to use hot restart, because it's not apparently working there. So hot reload and hot restart, what is this? So Flutter comes with stateful hot reload approach. So once you change something in your code, you can actually keep the state of your application and restart your application, or like run your application directly by keeping the current state. So hot reload and hot restart are the technologies that you're using to actually rerun your applications really fast, really efficient. So this is another, so to say, tooling that you can use to enhance your experience as a Flutter developer. But obviously, we are not here to talk only about like IDEs and hot reload, hot restart. These are really important things that you need to keep in mind. This is for sure. But what we are going to talk about today is mainly dev tools. Because one more time, if you have a good tooling, you can have better applications and actually less frustrating development environment. So let's continue. So DevTools are basically a website that is working locally in your computer, and it is helping you to inspect your UI layout. And this is really so DevTools is something that you can use to do multiple things. Like, first of all, you can do to inspect your UI layout. The second thing that you can do is you can check out the performance of your Flutter application. Third thing is, what you can do is you can go through the source code level information. You can see if it's recreating some objects in your application, or like how actually your Flutter application is performant. Like, how can it just keep the objects and reuse them, how the caching mechanism works. You can see them through just simply using the widget tree approach. You can also see the memory issues that you might have coming from Flutter or Dart. Or basically, you can just see the logs coming from either your application or the SDK level. Now we will see how you can install the developer tools. For making things easier, Flutter team implemented ways for you to just run the developer tools direct out of the box from your IDE. Like, if you're using Android Studio or IntelliJ IDEA, probably you are going to be seeing an open developer tools, either a button or as an option inside your Flutter inspector. You can just click on it and it will automatically install it for you, and you don't need to do anything extra. And if you're using Visual Studio Code, again from your command palette, you can just open it up and write dev tools, and you can see that actually there's a command for you to just go through and install your dev tools. And when you click on it, it will just activate it, install it, and open it in a browser. There is another option. Let's assume that you don't want to do anything by IDE. You just hate yourself for some reason. What you can do is you can use terminal commands, and you can actually just install these dev tools by using simple commands. So what you can do is, first, like after you install Dart and Flutter environments, you will have access to some set of rules, set of command keys. By the way, sometimes my voice goes because like I've been working since the morning, then I'm here, so bear with me. Sometimes my brain gives a break, but I will be coming back stronger. Anyway, so what we are doing here is we have the pop keyword coming from Dart itself. So what we can just use it and say pop global activate DevTools. After you do that, it will activate it for Dart. But if you want to do it by Flutter, you can also say Flutter pop global activate DevTools. This will globally activate your DevTools directly. So after you activated the DevTools, obviously you need to be able to run it. If you want to run it, you will just say pop global run DevTools. If you want to do it from pop or Dart, whatever you want to call it. But if you want to do it from Flutter, you will just say Flutter pop global run DevTools. And after you run it, you will see some message below stating that your DevTools are running at a server, at a point, at a link that is provided there. So you can just direct yourself there and see how your DevTools look like. okay, like once you open the DevTools, you will see a website like this. Don't worry, you don't have to see everything. We will go into details for each step, so you will see how it works. So what we are going to do here is we can see some set of rules that is really useful for us to actually understand what's going on behind the scenes of our application. Because sometimes we have questions like, oh, my application restarting this widget all the time. This is recreating it all the time. Why do I have to do this? Why is it going so wrong? And actually, your tooling is your biggest weapon that you can use to get ahead of these problems. So let's continue. So when you land into the page in here, you will see multiple approaches, multiple buttons. In the first tab, it's called Flutter Inspector. And in Flutter Inspector, you will see some set of rules. And if you continue, the first button on the left side is called Select Widget Mode. This is a really useful mode for you. It helps you to just have a clicker and go through your either device or your emulator or simulator and click on one widget, and it will directly take you to the position of that widget in the DevTools. So you can actually see the parent widget of it, and you can see how it is created, the current value stated there, and also within your application, you will see which type of widget is that. So you can actually understand, for example, you landed in a project, right? And you need to change something in a certain page, but you don't know what page it is. How would you navigate? Maybe it's a big project and it has a lot of codes that are not either used or not so valid anymore. So you need to have a better approach. You can't just go through the code all the time and be able to find it. This will take so much time. What you can do is you can just run it, and you can just click on the button as I described, and it will take you to the place, so you will know where it is, and you can just open it up. It can also help you to navigate yourself to its resource position as well, so you don't even have to go back to the ID, blah, blah, blah. It will help you directly to be part of it. So, secondly, we have a button called Refresh Tree. Once you load this page, it is not working like reactively. So once you actually load it, it will keep it in the state that you loaded already. So if you want to update the state, for example, imagine that you have this counter app out of box, the counter app coming out of the box from the Flutter itself, and you just run it, it will show you, okay, the counter text is 0. And even though you click on the button, this web page will not be actually updated. So if you want to see the changes, you can actually refresh it by clicking this refresh tree button, and it will update it for you. So there is a really nice usage of this from a talk in the GDD China last year. And you can actually see your render objects and everything here, and how it doesn't change along the way that you just update the information in your texts. So you can also have some proof of concepts about some information that we always talk about, like why Flutter is so effective. But this is not our topic here. Another thing is called performance overlay. So it is a toggle that you can use to see how performant is your widget, your widgets are creating itself, and you can see if it's above average or at which point it is going high or low. So you can actually understand at which point your widget creation process becomes a burden. And it is a live graphic along the way that you have within your application. And you can just see how it affects. Like in this application that I have here, basically it was a super simple like kick scooter application. So you have I had a map here, and this map here, as you see, at some point had the creation issue, which was in the initialization. So you can have some information about what's going on, and you can actually understand and get ahead of the problem here if it's happening and if it's affecting your performance. So next topic in Flutter Inspector is slow animations. I will tell you a funny story. So when I first started with Flutter development, I mean, it's unrelated to this, but I will tell it anyway. When I first started with Flutter development, I had my iOS simulator working, and all the animations were extremely slow. And I was like, what the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? I mean, I'm able to see the problems. That was really helpful for me to get it, like, go ahead and fix some problems, but I didn't know. And it turns out in iOS simulators, you have a mod to slow down your animations, which was something I didn't know, but I found out 2.5 years ago. But yeah, every day we learn something. Anyway, and this button here basically works like that. So you can toggle this to have slower animations. So for example, if you have a transformation animation, for example, you can have a rectangle going into the circle. If you want to, like when you run it fast, it might be like really, really good, but you might want to run it slower to see how actually it works, or is it actually behaving like you want? So you can be sure that your animation works. Or you can also see, for example, you can have hero animations and you can see the behavior of them if they're okay for you. So you can decide on by just slowing down the animations that you have. This is a really cool feature as well. The next thing that we are going to talk about is paint baselines. This is mostly used in text because according to the font that you might be using or according to what you have in your application, the baseline of the text, for example, can vary and it might look a bit weird. And if you want to go take a look at it and understand, you can actually see the baselines of your widgets and you can see if they really align, for example, or you can just check out at which point your font or your drawing fails you. So you can just toggle this out and see how your baseline works, and you can actually understand how this thing is. You can actually understand how this thing was problematic, or if it was working fine, that's perfect. Next thing that I want to talk about is Repaint Rainbow. So Repaint Rainbow is something that I really like in the dev tools because, as I said, these polys are super loud in Berlin. I still can't get used to it. 2.5 years, nothing. Anyway, one thing here is you have multiple ways to understand how your widget is recreated. But what you can also see here is you can actually, by the color changes, you can see which widget is created more often than the other. So you can actually understand which widget is repainted, which widget is which widget is directly used out of the box without changing anything. And from the color changes that you see on the screen, you can see the level of the recreation point. And this way you can it will use directly the rainbow colors so you can understand which one is working better, or sorry, which one is recreated again and which one is not. And my all-time favorite, this was something that I really liked also in Android as well, that debug paint. So sometimes you draw something or you create some widgets and you don't understand why is it taken why is it not showing properly, why is it behaving differently, and why just it fills out all the place. This toggle here is helping you to understand the borders of the widgets that you create, and so you can understand and just diagnose what your problem is and actually make an action out of it. Because sometimes, for example, you can put something in a row, but it doesn't show. But actually, the problem was that you didn't see it. It is just taken the first element was just taking the whole place, and the second element was just not showing. And instead of just like hitting your head to the brick wall, you can actually use debug paint, and this will help you to understand the boundaries of each child that you have on the screen. So debug banner and platform picker, these are two things that are really useful. Like debug banner is probably something that annoys all of you. Like when you start your application, on the right up corner, it shows a banner called debug, and sometimes you don't want to see it. It's actually a toggle here as well. You can just untoggle it and you can directly have a clear screen. And second thing that you can do is you can pick a platform. So what this platform picker does is when you run, for example, when you run this and when you run your application on Android emulator, but if you want to see, for example, the behavior of the toolbar, so you can actually change the platform, and this change will affect your current device, and it will show, for example, the toolbar according to the iOS. If it's iOS, it will show it as iOS. If it's Android, it will show it as Android. So this is also really helpful. You don't need to like create two different devices and create everything at once. You can actually use this toggle to simply check some basic things without spending much effort. Now I talked enough about the Flutter inspector itself. I will talk about timeline now. So timeline thing is basically something that you can see, you can understand how your rendering works, how your GPU works, how effective your UI works, and you can actually understand again at which points for example, there was a burden on your GPU. And one good thing about this is it, like, as you see here, there are some red points, and what it does is it really helps you to make your application better by warning you in some points your application was a burden on your GPU, so just like go ahead and try to fix it. And when you see it, you can say that, okay, when I click this button, this was causing this, so let me make it better, and you can rerun it and see it. You can also see the details of at which point what happened and why it was problematic. You can just like, let me go back. When you think about this graph, you can just pick an interval, and this interval will take you to a new page that is giving you even more detailed information about it, like at which point, what happened, what was your flame chart for your CPU, what happened, what is the call tree, like what happened behind the scenes in your Flutter framework. And you can actually understand, like, okay, there was one operation that was taking more than even a second. So that's why it is really helpful for you to just go deeper and understand how these things work. The second thing that I want to talk about is memory. Like, what it does is it does, again, multiple things. It just shows your, for example, objects and how many of them are there and how much space do they just fill in your memory. Also, in the graph section, you can see at which points does it enter your memory and how it behaves, and at which point and how much did it take for it to just fill out your memory. You can get snapshots out of it. You can see even more detailed information about it. Like, you can just go to the detail and see that how many, for example, how many bytes, megabytes, gigabytes, whatever you have is used, kilobytes as well. How many of them got garbage collected, how many of them are used, how many of them are external, what was your capacity at that point, why is it problematic at that point. You can just see these detailed information by just simply clicking one information, or just getting an interval of the data and opening it up in detail. After this, we have the performance tab. The performance tab here is basically showing how long did it take for your widget to create it, how long did it take for your method to be called. So you can see actually which widget creation process or which parsing process was really good or which parts were really terrible. So you can, again, make your enhancements according to information that you have. So what we see here is we don't just see the methods or the parsing mechanisms that we have within our application, but we also see that I'm sorry, I saw an amazing sentence. Yes, we can see the problems, but solving is another matter. That's a good point. But at least like you would know your enemy, so you would maybe have a chance to fight with it. Because in here you will be seeing some framework level operations as well, but you can also see the operations that you do within your application. So in this case, for example, there were some things happening in framework or diagnostics and so on, but there were some things happening within our application as well. So I can see, for example, if I did something wrong when I was doing some operation. So performance is really cool as well. It flows really fast, so you can record it and you can actually get the part that you need only, so you can keep the information that you have. Debugger is like, if you're working with IDE, you are most likely to use your debugger within your IDE, and it is more than enough, at least with my experience so far. But there are some VS Code developers, so they will be more like, probably they're having harder times, because I've been using IntelliJ for a long time, and with IntelliJ you have these like extra toolings that you can just get the snippet of the data directly and so on and so forth. So I feel really happy to use IntelliJ, but if you need an extra debugger which is bringing you some information about the imported libraries that you have in a current class, or what are your, like, if you want to have breakpoints and see detailed, like really detailed information about what you have, you can just use debugger. It works exactly like all the other debuggers that you might know. It brings almost everything that you might have to the table, so you can actually use this as well as your debugger. But if you ask me if I use it so far, I didn't use the debugger. So maybe it has something even more valuable that I didn't know. I don't know, but with my current knowledge, it is not so different than the ones that we have already in our IDs. Lastly, logging. Why logging is important? I mean, like, probably you are not able to see it, but I can say that actually logging is really, really valuable in our case, because especially when you're a Flutter beginner, it's sometimes really hard to evaluate error messages or how things are working and what's going on behind the scenes. They are really descriptive, yes, but if you know what you're doing, they are valuable. If you're a beginner, at least for me, it was really hard to understand what those messages were doing. I was like, what are you trying to tell me? Just give me the line so I can go and fix it. But it didn't work that way. Unfortunately, I needed to understand how it was talking to me so I can say that, okay, the problem was this. But sometimes even understanding is not enough. So you need to go even deeper, because sometimes you have problems even in lower levels, and you can just go ahead and check out the related information directly with this login mechanism. This gives you a lot of information about what's going on behind the scenes. You can, as you see on the right side, you can see even the data heaps, data chunks going around, and just open that up and see how those work, and what, like, for example, what changed, what were their capacities, and how did it change your approach. So logging is really valuable as well. One thing that I really want to mention as a bonus is, so you might be asking, why didn't Flutter team use Flutter for Web for the tooling? Because right now they are not using, as I said, it's just a website, but actually they are using it. They have, and so if you go to the very right end of the tab, you will see some like chemistry glass thingy, and it's actually like experimental. Right now they're working on rewriting everything for DevTools in Flutter for Web. And you can see that what it brings to the table is, since it is directly attached to your application as a Flutter application as well, you can just fix some trivial things that were actually causing a lot of troubles out of the box by just changing and playing around with some variables here. If you want to test this out, I think you can't do it right now with stable. You need to be on the developer channel, but it is really helpful. And I really recommend you to just check this out with some simple applications so you can understand how these work. And yeah, thank you very much for listening. I know time to time I was a bit slow, but I'm a human being. Sometimes it's harder. But thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, you can just shoot now. Oh, I need to get a coffee. So, how to become a Flutter GDE? So I will tell my story, how it worked, and you can have your lessons out of it. So normally becoming a GDE works like this. You need to be nominated by either another GDE or a Googler. And there are like multiple steps. First, they check out if you are eligible to be a GDE by checking out what you have done. And secondly, you will have a technical interview with another GDE. And third step, you will have another technical interview with a Googler. Lastly, you will just sign some NDA and you will be a GD. This is the official process. How I became was basically I was active in the community. As you see, like I am talking in conferences or meetups or just like organize some stuff. What I do is I also just like create content, like make some YouTube videos, write some blog posts, and at the end, this was offered to me and I just took the chance and I'm happy to be one. This is how you become. We can jump to the next one. VS Code has most extensions and quite good ones like PubSpec assets. So what more better under Studio IntelliJ can provide? I mean, I don't know, but most of the time I don't know the process right now, but before most of the features that were implemented first to the IntelliJ before. But my main reason that I picked IntelliJ is first, my like personal background. I have an Android background, so for me it was like an easier choice to go to the IntelliJ because I knew all the shortcuts and everything, so I was able to just like dive into it. And for me, it brings more, I don't know, developer-friendly environment. But I didn't use VS Code that much, so I can't just say that VS Code is terrible. IntelliJ can kick some butt, but for me, it is amazing. Next one. Any good resources to learn? Any good resources to learn Flutter other than Flutter documentation? Like, there are multiple resources that you can see or follow. One thing is, like in the Flutter community, we have a Medium channel. And actually, if someone can share it on Twitch, you can just go ahead and read some amazing content, like really good editors are taking care of it, and they are like really well developed content, so you can have a written content like that. By videos, actually Flutter team is offering a free beginner courses, so you can learn Flutter by just checking out that course as well. There's also a paid version of it, but that paid version is not super expensive, so you can just buy it as well. And besides that, I think for me, Flutter, the last option is Flutter documentation. It's really thorough, so you can just understand how it works, how everything works, by just simply clicking like Command B if you're an IntelliJ and see how it works. But like Flutter community materials, the course provided by Flutter team itself, and lastly, Flutter documentation. Those three are the resources that I can suggest. Next one. What do you call that last tool? The okay, I don't know what that means. So what I call the last tool is simply the same dev tools, but it's an experimental version of it. So you can just first go to the dev channel, then run the dev tools on your device, and afterwards you can just enable it by clicking onto the very right end. There's a experimental button. Click on it, and it will recreate it with Flutter for Dev. It's the dev tools again, but it's experimental. Next one. What are the advantages on using dev tools on Chrome instead of the ones embedded in IntelliJ Android Studio? As far as I know, like I think you're not able to use the memory charts and I haven't been using Android Studio for a while, but I think for Flutter you can't use like these memory charts and etc. in IntelliJ directly, right? So you can have the Flutter inspector part as a Flutter inspector tab, but all the rest, like the 6 other tabs, you can't use them in your IntelliJ. That's what I know. Next, does the dev tools collect, show HTTP GraphQL data like Vue dev tools? Okay, I don't know what Vue dev tools are, but I can say that it is showing the data that you receive from the backend. It doesn't obviously show the data that is happening in the background in the backend, but once you receive the data, you can see the raw version of it directly. It's like you can see it in multiple things. So let me check it really quickly in which one you can see. I can tell you directly. You can see it in memory itself. You can see it in debugger. And yeah, that's it. Like you can see it in memory and debugger directly. We can go to the next question. Thank you for your time. Greetings from your friend Alfredo. Hey man, good to hear from you. Hope to see you this year as well after this Corona thing. Can you see network or API traffic in DevTools? Yes, you can see it. You can see all the information happening within your device. Next one. I find very difficult learning block MobX extra. How did you manage? Did you have any state management background with like core Android? So my background is Android, but for me, it was really hard to understand how the state logic was working because I don't know, for me, it was different. So I will tell you one story that I can tell, that I can say is like, in my first project, we had a Redux architecture. And for me, Redux still is a mystery. Like, it's really hard for me to understand. So please don't be hard on yourself. I know, like, you're talking about like block. Block is really hard to understand as well. So what I would suggest is first, you can just try to understand what state is and try to do some stuff with stateful widget and inherited widgets so you can understand what state is, what stateful widget is. Then I wouldn't go with complicated stuff. I would check either the provider package or some, like I think MobX has a nice approach as well, but since you say it's complicated, just leave the things that are complicated for you and try to use the simpler approaches until you understand what state management is. Because if you don't know it, there is no point of trying to build something on top of not so solid, because it will fall down eventually. So what I would suggest is if something is coming at you really complicated, leave that and try to increase your knowledge on another thing, another approach. But if all of them are hard, ask it around. try to reach out to people from the community, like using the Slack, or like today is, for example, a hump day Q&A. Just go to the Zoom and like ask questions and try to find your answers. And this way you can actually learn better. Because if something is more complicated, if something is complicated for you, don't do it. Because it doesn't make any sense. We can go to the next one. How much time you give to become a Flutter developer GD? I mean, I spend so much time on Flutter like every day. So I don't know if I'm the best example. Like every day, I work 8 hours a day in my job and I do Flutter all the time. After that, I spend at least like 2 or 3 hours another, like for the community work, arrangements and organizational stuff. I mean, I don't do this stuff to become a GD, so I didn't calculate it, how much time did I spend to become a GD. But it obviously requires some dedication to be an expert on something. So when you feel like you have done enough, like GD doesn't mean that that person only is the expert on a topic. That means that that person is also active in the community, willing to share this information with the others and actually makes a step forward for the related technology. So this is how it works more than a time frame. You can think evaluate it as with the amount of the work that you do for it. Next one. How to learn Flutter and practice and resource for Learn Tell About. Okay, I didn't get it. Like if you're talking about how to learn Flutter and what are the resources for it, I answered this before. I can tell it one more time. First of all, you can check out the Flutter community Medium channel and also the YouTube channel. You can see what they are producing. You can read about it. Secondly, there is a course from Angela Yu that is created with the cooperation with Flutter team itself, and they're giving away right now, so you can check it out and you can learn it by watching those videos. And lastly, Flutter's documentation is amazing, so you can check it out and actually enhance your knowledge about it. Next question. My favorite question. Google is supporting Flutter, but also Kotlin multi-platform. What do you think about the future of Flutter? Google is famous for killing things. I mean, I left my Android job and became a Flutter developer. I've seen a lot of people are doing it. So none of us believes that Flutter will go anywhere. Neither Flutter is going to kill another technology, and nor I don't think that Flutter will be killed by another technology itself. Like Flutter is different, Kotlin multi-platform is different. They are dedicated, beautiful technologies, and they are there. Nothing is going to be killed. Flutter is therefore creating a supreme, nice multi-platform approach that you can use, not just mobile, web, and desktop as well. Also, there is a Fuchsia operating system happening that is, let's say, bringing even more perspective to Flutter. From my point of view, it's not going. I don't think that it's going to be killed. If it gets killed, it's an open source project. Nothing will go down. As a software engineer, you will not lose anything. Time to time, we change our fields. If it goes down, I will change it, but I don't think that it will go down. Next one. Did you try States Rebuilder package? Would you recommend it? I have zero clue about that package. I'm really sorry. I don't know. When playing with DevTools platform, I can't find any difference between iOS and Android. I think what you mean is you are toggling with platforms and you are not seeing any difference from iOS to Android. And I think it is working for if you have Xcode DevTools. So it is not just showing you iOS or Android view, but it shows you if you have the Xcode tools and everything. So if you have a Mac, then you're able to see it in the same emulator. So if you have a Mac, it should work. Then if it's not working, something wrong. But if you're doing it on a Windows, I think it will not work on Windows. Next question. Need to program in here. Perfect. Is Flutter mainly used for mobile development? Right now, the stable versions of Flutter is working on mobile. So that's why right now it is like in production. Most of the applications that are created so far are in the market are mobile, but Flutter's main objective is to give you a chance to run one single code base on web, mobile, and desktop. So right now mobile, yes, but in the future the objective is even more broader. Next one. On the DevTools view, what does the debug banner and platform picker do again? Debug banner is basically, that's a banner that you have in your application, and that banner is just a visual representation to show that it's debug. So you can just enable or disable it. And what platform picker was doing is basically when you change the platform and if you have the tools, like for example, if you're working on a Mac and if you run an Android emulator, if you change the toggle, your emulator will show the iOS view. This is what it was doing. The next one, please. Enter a port or URL to a running Dart of Flutter application. Where can I see URL of my Flutter app? So I think you are missing an installation point, because if you see this means that your device, your emulator or simulator, whatever you're using, is not attached to the debugger. So that's why you are seeing this. So we need to be more specific about what you have done. Next one, please. Kevin Moore. Hi, Kevin. How's it going? What's more exciting to you, web support or desktop support? I'm sorry, Dominic, but web is more exciting to me. Next one, please. Thank you, Adam. Very excellent presentation. Thank you. How to use DevTools. I just made a big presentation about it, so you can watch the video later on. May I create big apps or important ones without block using just pure Flutter? You need to have a state management approach, because when you reach to a point, you will have some information that you need to share along the app or within some parts of the app. So without block, yes, you can, but you need a state management approach like Mobex or Provider or Scope Model or whatever you have in your mind. Next one, please. Okay, last question. So have you used Build Runner for code generation in any of your projects? What do you think of it? I'm not a big fan of it. I think we need to have a better way to generate code, but right now we don't have a better approach. So I mean, like in most of my projects, I just like try to stay away from Build Runner most of the time. So like this was the last question, but if you have any further questions, you can reach out to me on Twitter. Just like tag me on one of your questions and I will try to answer it. Again, thank you to everyone for your questions. Thank you everyone for organizing this. It was really great. And I think that's all for me.